Hey
Hey guys,
guys, what's
what's up?
going
What's up?
on? What's going on? This is
This
Stephanie.
is Andre.
This is Table for Four live sessions number 11. 11. How's it?
Onse.
11. Got to be four fingers away from the mic because if not, too close, I'm going to blow everybody's ears out. How is everybody doing? Welcome. It's May. Already the end of May.
It's gonna be
It's
mine.
gonna be May. And also, school is finishing. Thank God. School is almost finishing. It's getting to the cross line. We're getting there. We're getting to the end of the line. School's almost over. Guys, I know a lot of graduations are going on, college graduations. I've seen so many students, a lot of dance students that I've
Pictures,
met,
yep.
pictures and celebrating graduating from colleges. I want to say congratulations to all those graduates. I had a couple of coworkers that recently graduated from the nursing program. Congrats to you. So many different things going on. Hopefully, you guys will have a good remaining summer. But June is around the corner and school's almost over. What is going on? Welcome to the live sessions with the
Yep.
podcast where we talk about different stories and topics and the headlines for the week and everything else in between. Let's get right into it. We have a special guest with us today, joining live with us today. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Let's go bring in our special guest for today.
Hello, everybody. Thank you
Hey
for having me
Jesse!
back
Hey
on.
Jesse!
What's going on?
How are you?
Oh, we're
How are
doing
you?
good.
Oh.
Keeping busy, keeping busy. Jesse, thank you so much for
Uh-uh.
being with us on the live sessions today. We're going to just go right into it. We're going to talk about Tina Turner, recent news. She recently passed away at the age of 83. Now, I
Mm,
didn't realize that she lived in Switzerland. I didn't know that, but I know
She
she
lives
was.
in Switzerland?
Yeah,
Wow.
I didn't even know she lived in Switzerland. I was like, when
Damn.
you got money, you can live wherever you want. But that's the case. But they said in the news that she was dealing with a silent battle with an illness. They didn't say what
They
in
didn't
particular.
specify?
They didn't really specify.
Man, it's like I feel like nowadays everyone's hiding it. Like the whole Jamie Foxx thing. Like they're
Yo,
not really going public on
let me
what happened to him.
let me tell you what's going on with that. Let me tell you what's going on with that. They don't want to reveal any information because it could be something that could be damaging.
Damaging, yeah. That's what I was thinking too.
what are your thoughts on that, Jesse? Because they're not hiding that information with Jamie Foxx. My man has
Uh,
stroke. Come on, like what's going on?
Well, when it came to Jamie Foxx, I mean, his daughter even came out and said that, like the press were really blowing things out of proportion with him and saying that he was like knocking on death's door. Meanwhile, he was just recovering and he was back home. And she said that he was even playing like pickleball with some friends.
Yeah, after
So,
right, that report came out after another family member said that they're praying for the worst and they're planning for the worst. And then the
yeah.
daughter came out and said a statement will be made on Friday, saying that he's playing pickleball. So I don't know. I feel like they're hiding
I
something, bro.
understand.
I don't know, but even beyond that, I think that something that's more important is that, just because they're celebrities doesn't mean that like all of their information needs to be out there, you know? I mean, like especially when it comes to their health issues and concerns, like they have a right to their own privacy, especially when they're in the limelight all the time. I mean, it's shocking to us to hear about something like this because it seems like out of the blue for us. But you know what?
Yeah.
Right,
Unless
right,
you're
right.
like Tina Turner's immediate family member, you don't know what's going on. They had their own lives, and they should, if they choose to keep this quiet, then they have the right to.
Absolutely. And as anybody else with Jamie Foxx, my worst thought is that it could be drug related. You know how there's always controversy around drug use and suicide, things of that matter. But it's just like, why are we hiding? Again, we're thinking about something that could be damaging. Who knows? I mean, if he's fine and he's recovering, let it be. I mean, we don't need to know. They have their own
Yeah,
privacy. Keep it moving. But
right. Like everybody has the right to at least keep something like that to themselves if they want to,
Yeah.
especially when they're out in the limelight all the time. Like it's their business, it's their bodies, it's their health, it's their
Right.
well-being. You know,
Just sad, bro.
it is sad though.
it
Like what?
it is, it is.
I want to play a little clip talking about the news for Tina Turner.
Legendary singer and songwriter. Had breaking news to tell you. We are just receiving word that legendary singer and songwriter Tina Turner has died. Turner died in her home in Switzerland after battling a long illness, according to her manager. She was known as the queen of rock and roll and was known for her hits The Best, Proud Mary, and What's Love Got to Do with It. Tina Turner was 83 years old. We have sad breaking news.
That's so crazy.
I mean, she had a very successful career.
She did. That was it.
83 is a pretty long life. I'm sure that everybody who loves her wants more time. 83 years wasn't enough with her.
Yeah.
But you know what? We got to remember all the great things that she did, and she was a groundbreaking musician.
Yeah. All the contribution to the music industry, to the genre, everything, bro. It's
And them legs.
paved the way for a lot
And
of
them
women.
legs.
The legs.
And the legs. And the legs. I feel like somebody else came on. I don't know if somebody else popped in.
No,
No.
nobody did.
No, okay. I was about to say, I was like, right? With those legs.
Yeah.
Those are them legs.
She
But
was fit. She took care of herself.
sure did at 83.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that another sad story for today we want to share is the 1 year anniversary of the Uvalde shooting in Texas. Now, there's been a lot of coverage, and I know we spoke about it a million
Yeah.
times that we can't even continue with the same subject. But this is something that it happened a year ago, really right around the time when school's finishing. And they had so many different journalism stories behind it, talking about the first time we discussed it was they were thinking about tearing down the building.
Yeah.
Now
It's still fighting for
it's
it.
still fighting for it because it is considered a landmark
a landmark
building.
now, yep.
They're still deciding whether or not they're going to still keep it up for construct, or break it down and reconstruct again. So the stories a year later, and has there been any changes to gun laws? Not really.
No.
Not really. Nothing that's been reflected in a sense that we can see it on paper, or if there's any evidence of it. It's just still it's such a sad story, and we want to share a little clip of that in remembrance to 1 year later in Uvalde.
I love the murals because there's a little bit of joy, right? It's just, they're beautiful.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
I like the pink flower by her. It's like, that's Jackie.
Always had her hair like that. I have a picture that she literally has flowers in her.
We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
I want them to always remember the 21.
You get to see their face again. All the kids are probably having fun up there.
It feels good to see the murals because they bring back the good memories, not the bad ones.
People are trying to help us keep our kids' names alive and make sure that they're never forgotten.
Hold every memory as you go, and every road you take.
I like Eva's too.
Yeah. Very pretty.
That's exactly it.
Maite. Beautiful
Maite. My tail. All the little hearts, you see them there?
Yeah.
She just looks happy and she just looks at peace.
So those were Tessa's bracelets. We got them back. The T on there, that's the one that I usually wear.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Lexi girl.
Her hair is actually back in the original photo, but we wanted it down so you could see the highlights.
It's very easy to want to push all the bad things in the world aside. But if we forget, this will just happen again and again.
Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Man, just looking at that,
It's unimaginable for what these parents are going through.
Yeah, just looking. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just looking at that and looking at the murals and looking at just thinking about all the different the victims in there. It's just
Man, the ABC just got us in our fields right
I
now,
know
bro.
I got me in all of my fields. I'm tearing over here, man. Jeez.
It was a very well done video,
It
very
Thank you,
was.
Hulu. The ABC.
Right? Thank you very much. Making us look good. But yeah, I remember the first time I heard it and I was on my way home and the kids and I we were talking about it like, "Mommy, how did they even get into the school or how like who like how old are they?" And a lot of them were 5th graders, 6th graders, the
Yeah.
same age as
yeah.
our youngest, and it's just I can't like fathom just a year later thinking about all these things that just happening. It's just yeah. Makes me sad, makes me
It
angry.
does. It does.
Makes me angry.
Because just like the lady said at the end, like the teacher said, like nothing's gonna change.
Yeah.
And it hasn't.
It's the sad truth is that it's all going to come down to money. It's not an issue of mental health. It's a fact that the NRA has an insane amount of money, and they pay many of our
Congressman,
senators and
Senator.
congressmen. They pay them a lot. And of course, if they back these people, what are they going to do? They're going to do whatever they can to back the NRA. And, the NRA is profitable. Guns make money. And as long as they make money, they'll do whatever they can to keep the money flowing.
And they're going to keep the money flowing. That's exactly what's going to happen. But just thinking about like all the shootings that I can think of, right? The ones that come off the top of my head. You're thinking about Columbine. We're thinking about a lot of it mostly in like school shootings. Like, how is it that we can better protect our children? How is it that we can make sure that, the right people are where they need to be and the protections are put in place? Those are the things like we always have to think of that. And
Well,
it's just super annoying, like just thinking about it.
it's just that this conversation always goes to, oh, it's not about the guns, it's about the people, it's
Right.
about mental health. And the thing is, the reason why they bring that up is because it's by placing it on mental health, then you're creating an unwinnable situation, because how do you cure or handle mental health? There is no fix towards mental health. There's steps, there's processes, there's therapy, there's things like that, but it's not exactly a cure. So as long as they keep on saying that the problem is mental health, then there would never be a solution, because you will never find the cure to mental health issues.
Right. Because there is no cure to that.
There is no cure to mental health issues. What realistically what needs to happen is listen, if you think about every other industry, okay, if you think about the medical field, you have the do no harm. You have, if you think about automobiles, you have seatbelts and and airbags. If you think about flying on an airplane, you have TSA and you have security. And why do you have all these things? Because not addressing these things is a hazard to human health and human life. We do these things to prevent the loss of life, to protect people. So if we have so many rules and regulations in so many vast areas of our lives and everything that we do, why are there not more regulations on the number one cause of child death as of today in the United States?
It's difficult to even think about that. It's difficult. I don't understand. And you mentioned it before that it is the NRA. There's a lot of good money that's being put in and invested into, how many people are going to get whatever they need to get done.
For them to oversee policies.
To oversee policies and things like this. So
they could get their vote.
The wheels are turning. They turn very, very slow. That's the problem. And you're not going to get results overnight. That's never going to happen. But.
And in the meantime, a lot of people through, senators and congressmen are making a lot of money through the NRA, and, it'll continue to happen. There will be another shooting. We don't know when or where it'll be. I mean, last year, not too far away from me in the train station, just like 20 blocks away from me, There was the shooting that happened in between the stations, you know, where a man who had a bag filled with several guns threw smoke bombs and started shooting people in the middle of the tunnel.
What?
That was just a few blocks away from me. So uh, the problem is people also think, oh, it'll never happen to me. It'll never happen to anybody that I know. It'll never happen to anybody else that I care about. It'll happen to somebody else in another state far away. But
It's not always.
unless it's a shooting that happens to actually, you know, somebody in power, that'll be the only time where anything matters. And you know, people will say, "You'll take my gun over my dead body."
That, well,
Yeah.
because it's about freedom. It's
Mhm.
about freedom.
It's about freedom, but
Yeah, but still.
what happens to the freedom of these children that are now dead? Where they're entitled to the same level of freedom as the rest of us.
Where are their
Why is it
liberties?
okay?
Yeah.
Where's their liberties? Where's their ability just to live life now?
And that's the unfortunate thing. But again, you know, we are only but mere morsels in this large pan of the BS that has to go through just to get to the message that we need in order to say we need to keep our children safe. We need to keep people safe.
Yep.
And again, if we're putting safeties in place, what's so different about putting safeties for guns?
Listen,
What's
I you know, if people want to have their guns, it's their right to. But you know what? I don't think that when you know, the Constitution was first written, that they had any idea that guns would develop to the capabilities that they have today.
no
You
way.
know,
No way.
back then they were just single bullet, you know, manually loaded rifles, and the government was still forming. And it was, you know,
It was in its infancy. It was in its infancy.
I
and
think
it's still.
still
So
can't figure it out.
I mean, that is a little fair to say, but still, there's so many things that come into factor. What Jesse's saying, it's like there woulda, shoulda, coulda. You know,
it's like, think about it like this, you know, the internet is a relatively new development, you know, and since the internet's come along, we've had new laws that have developed specifically for the internet. If we have new technology, there needs to be new laws in order to regulate this new technology, including with firearms.
the same with Chat GTP. There has to be some sort of regulations put in check.
We will get into that.
That's what I'm saying. But I want to talk about our next topic. New York City is sinking. I don't know if we're sinking in debt or we sink. No, but it's literally sinking.
Definitely debt. We definitely got debt.
We definitely got debt. But what's happening now, there's like a new study that has like finally calculated about the mass amount of buildings.
Yeah, the 1 million plus buildings in the 5 boroughs of New York City. It says here that it weighs about 1.68 trillion pounds, causing the city to sink at a rate of 1 to 2 millimeters per year.
Okay. So, all right, think about it, right? First building I think to mind, Empire State Building, right?
Yeah.
Now we're thinking about all these type of buildings. Now multiply that by how many buildings?
It says 1 million.
1 million.
1 million plus.
Do the math. Plus the junk that's in there. Not the junk. I don't want to say junk. Furniture. We're talking about cars. We're talking about parking lots. We're talking about people, furniture, lights, you know, all the things that you can think of in the infrastructure of a building. So now I thought that it was really focused on Manhattan. Is it not focused on Manhattan?
I think it's the city. I think it's
I
because the
feel
city
like
is built on bedrock.
It's on the water. That's what I'm saying.
No, but the foundation itself is built on rock underneath the island itself.
Right, because Manhattan.
But you gotta remember, like we keep digging holes, tunnels. It keeps degrading the structure.
Right. That's the other thing, because they had the new infrastructure with all the new train stations thing, and they were
subterranean.
They were
excavating, you know.
They were TNT and everything in there, and they were like messing with all the underground just for all these renovations.
Yeah.
So how long do you think that the whole New York City would be underwater? How long would it think it would be?
It might be beyond our lifetime.
Yeah,
Who knows?
It won't be in our lifetime.
I mean, hopefully not, but between the sinking and and the water level rising, they're
Hey,
not a good combination.
it's not. I mean, we know about with
Water
these.
finds its way no matter what. It doesn't matter how you try to
True that.
block it out.
Yeah,
That's
we
right. It will find its
It will
way. If
find a
if
way.
we're if we're lowering enough, the
Yeah.
water's gonna greet us right there.
Bitch.
got him. No, but here's the thing. Like now we're thinking about the tropical storms, Hurricane Sandy. These weathers were like were these like regular things or were these anomalies? That's the thing. Like if this is something that keeps reoccurring, like all the tunnels are gonna be under the water. All these new
Well,
construction
Remember, the polar
trains and
caps are
trains
melting. We're
and
getting more
rails.
water. What do they say? Global warming? They say
Warming. They say
warming
it
is real.
ain't real. It's lie.
that's the thing. No,
It's true. It's
if
true.
anybody if anybody says that global warming is not real, then they are just in denial about it.
They're the ones that think the earth is flat.
But
Flat
but
earthers.
again, again, it goes back to money as well, because a lot of the pollution is being produced by a lot of really big manufacturers. And in order to produce the products that we enjoy and we appreciate, they got to spend money to do it. And in producing these things, waste is created, and that waste is pollution. So it was like back at the beginning of the pandemic when we all went on lockdown and everybody stayed home. We literally saw the clouds and the sky clear up.
Yeah.
That was a crazy thing.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
That was a crazy.
I remember
we
the picture of
witnessed
the
it.
skyline, or the New York City skyline on an actual busy day, full of smog, and then 6 months later, no no traffic, no cars driving,
Nothing.
clear as day.
So people like to confligate the issues where it's they say, oh, global warming is a naturally occurring event. It is a naturally occurring event. There's no question about that. It's the question of the rate at which it's been happening. And on top of that, historically speaking, every time there has been a massive global warming, it's been followed by a cooling, otherwise known as an ice age. We have not seen that cooling at all. We've just seen the increase of the heating. There has been no cooling. This past winter, we got like no snow.
No snow. Yep.
Okay, which is really concerning because we live right on the waterfront. Okay. And the snow and the wintertime, it cools the water down. It helps to regulate the water. If the water stays warm, especially right next to us here in New York, that means stronger storms, stronger hurricanes, because the warm water and the warm air is feeding it. So it's scary to think about.
It is scary. And to have another superstorm in New York.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Listen,
Very possible.
It's a big possibility. That's the scary part. It's not a fantasy. It's like it's legit. Too legit to quit. If these buildings are sinking, and it's like there's a lot of possibilities.
What was that movie? Jesse, was that movie that with Dennis Quaid about the?
With Dennis Quaid. Wait, you're not talking about Waterworld, are you?
No. The one with the New York City. The
that was the day after
Christ.
tomorrow.
The Day After Tomorrow. I love that movie. I love
That was
that
a good movie. But it was scary.
Yeah, well, you said it was going to take years. We have 7 days. I'm letting you know now. We got 7 days.
7 days.
Well,
Step outside of freeze. There's your freeze right there. Jesus.
Because of our influence, because of our influence on the weather globally, because it's not just the United States, it's other countries contributing as well. This increase in the temperature, in the climate, it's happening a lot faster. It's happening a lot faster than if we weren't having an influence on it.
And that's the crazy thing is like there's so many things that we can do, things that can be put in place. So we're trying to be more green. We're trying to think of more, conservative actions, a lot of electric cars, but it's like still like how much
It's not going to be enough.
It's not going to be enough.
It's not going to be enough.
And that's the sad part. But here's the thing is like thinking about like building after building after building after building after building. Like there's always a need to have new buildings, right? Here in Queens, you see all these new apartment buildings coming up, new infrastructure, new houses, things like that. It's happening everywhere. Like Florida, do you remember that case? I think it was like a year and a half ago when the building complex literally crumbled with everybody still inside.
Yeah.
And it was just like, just thinking of that. Could that be the possibility? If it is sinking, those are the possibilities. Now you're moving infrastructure. Now these buildings can collapse amongst
We had the
themselves.
garage collapse, parking garage collapse.
The parking
recently.
garage.
Yeah, that was
wasn't
right
too
by my
long ago
wife's
either.
job.
See, that wasn't even too far ago either. So these are the things, like when you're thinking about, like, people have to take into consideration, like, these are the possibilities. If everything is sinking, if water levels are rising, buildings can start collapsing, infrastructures that are being, penetrable and things like that. It's a scary thing.
There's I think one of the tectonic plates in California where it's like little by little, just like inching away or
It's like
coming
going like
closer
this.
to each other.
The new
Well,
Pangea, is that what it is? The new Pangea is going like
have
this.
you seen the pictures in Africa?
No.
There's actually a split happening right now in Africa. The actual continent is beginning to split in the southeastern side of Africa. You could actually Google some pictures of it right now, and you'll actually see the big split that's happening. And eventually, in some time, I'm not exactly sure how far along, but yeah, right there. That's a projected map. That's a projected map of what Africa is going to be looking like in the future.
March.
Holy crap!
See, they don't talk about this.
They're not talking about this. See what I'm saying?
So that's continental drift happening right before our eyes. I mean, will that entirely happen within our lifetime? More than likely not. But that is eventually what's going to happen to Africa. There's going to be an ocean in between the two parts of Africa.
Wow.
Look at that. Oh, that's crazy.
That is insane. That's insane.
Look at that.
Wow.
Just goes to show,
we all need to move to space. Now, the Space Force doesn't sound so stupid now, does it?
Oh, it's still stupid.
Just saying, just throwing it out there. But Jesse, I want to go into the next topic about transgender banned at Wyoming. Okay. So yeah, I know. So the premise is there was I'm trying to think.
A university.
Yeah.
There was a transgender student that is living in the sorority house in one of the Wyoming schools.
With the males, right?
No, with the females.
With the females. But it was male to female conversion.
Yeah, male to female conversion, yeah.
Got it. Okay. So there's a concern about how certain spaces regarding gender, right, should be sacred, right? So if it's a women's space, women should be really occupying that. If it's a men's space, occupying that. It goes into terms where it evolves through all different areas. We're talking about sports, which is another thing. We're not going to get into that today, but it's another sacred space where we're focusing on. So college is another sacred space. So now what's happening is that because this particular student or sorority member is living in a home with women, people wanted to start chiming in now. So one of the people that wanted to chime in is transgender superstar herself, Caitlyn Jenner. So
superstar.
I don't know how else to put it. I just don't know how else to put it, because if you're put in a position, right, I feel like I'm trying to.
But she's in the protection of women,
right? Because she considers herself a woman, correct? Right. So here's the thing: when you start talking about that conversation and you're protecting about women's spaces, how does it work for transgender? That's what I'm saying. Like, how it gets the complexities into that. Like, what are your thoughts on that, Jesse?
Well, I think that just like with any of these groups, transgendered women or, gay and lesbian people, I think that they need to be a big part of the conversation, we need to have an open discussion with their thoughts and their feelings about it, because what we as a society like to do in general is that we like to be like, okay, this is an issue that doesn't involve us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it involves these groups of people, but we want to have a say in their lives and their actions and what they do. You know,
And it's
we
not
want to have
reciprocated.
that
And
say.
it's not reciprocated.
Right. Okay. And like I said, it can be the same thing with gay and lesbian people. It can be the same thing with women and, reproduction rights. You know, it's like we as a society want to be able to say what these other groups and these other people want to do. You know, um, I think that it's got to be something in which people of, this group has a big say and big weigh in on the matter. Now, this also goes beyond them as well, obviously. You know, it also
Right, right.
affects the women who would be potentially dorming with them and their comfort levels and what they're feeling. I think that part of it as well is that there's this red flag that gets thrown around that, in particular with women, that a man will dress up like a woman in order to infiltrate and maybe like have some devious type of ways
Right.
with these women.
Which is not always
Okay.
the case.
Which is not the case. Okay. These are people who genuinely believe that they have the internal biology of this opposite gender, but they were biologically born the wrong gender.
Right.
Okay. Um, they just want to live their lives. And that is what they're fighting for. They're just fighting to live their lives. You know, they're fighting to have that same equality and that same right to life that the rest of us are having. You know,
But now the question goes into if it's about having the opportunity to live their own lives, how is it now
yeah.
affecting the other people? So other people meaning that people that are not comfortable with.
Right, which is also a thing too. It's also a
Right.
part of the equation as well, because you can't discredit the fact that somebody else would feel uncomfortable,
Right.
and it's like I can understand why they would feel uncomfortable for it, you know. Um, I just guess that in a perfect world, which would not just won't happen, is that we need to have that open communication, of what expectations are and what comfort levels are. Um, and there are also people that are just going to be biased. There are people that are,
Right.
I'm just like, this is how I think, this is how I feel. The end. I'm not opening myself up to any discussion about it. This is how it is. The end.
Right. Right.
Um,
And there's
so
no
as
open discussion about it.
Right, there's no open discussion. There's just this is how I feel, and because I feel this way, I am valid and you're not. Which really gets in the way here is really counterproductive because the fact is we all need to live together. We need to find that happy medium, that happy balance. Um, so I just think that there needs to be a lot of discussion in which we do actively and openly listen to what the people in the trans community have to say, you know?
It's hard too when you're also trying to incorporate open conversations with everybody. But if
Yeah,
nobody's willing to listen, right?
yeah,
Because I feel like that's always the case. And
yeah.
I only mean it in the sense that I call Caitlyn Jenner a superstar because her story was so grand. It was like a big reveal. It was a big controversy. It was like a big thing that it came out. Oh, she came out. She was a male and she's a female. And now that she exists in the space, right? Is she the
hmm
so-called representative for the whole community?
No, I don't think
That's
so at
the
all.
thing, right?
I find her to be a huge hypocrite. That I
Me
find her to
too.
be a
Me too.
huge hypocrite.
That's where I'm at.
I think, I thought that it was a very bold, decision for especially something like Caitlyn Jenner with the status that she has, to openly, come out and accept herself and make this decision because she, like everybody else in the trans community, said that I am this gender, but inside everything is screaming that I am not this gender. I
Right.
know that I am this gender.
Right.
And then she ends up going super right wing and very like anti-trans in everything that
Yeah,
she says.
girl.
All right, so
You
we have to talk
know,
about this.
Yeah,
Because she's on the side of women and not trans women.
right.
Exactly. She's on the side of cis women and not trans women, which is just
so
mind blowing.
like what?
Ready?
Oh my god.
On Twitter.
Are you guys playing the audio? I can't hear anything.
I'm gonna play it again. Hold on. There you go.
And you know, they can see him. He's got an erection. He's eyeing the girls. This is wrong. Society, we have to protect women. And this is not about the woke world. This is about protecting women. And they have, the women are so uncomfortable being, this is a women's space.
Who wants to go
And
first? You got the floor.
It's like I said, you know, it's the hypocrisy, and I'm really at the point where I can't stand the term woke because I feel like it's just a word that's just become a trigger word that like doesn't mean anything. You know, it means something different, you know? And and even if we want to like talk about the term being woke, what does it actually mean? It means what? Fighting for equal rights, being aware of the inequalities that happen, that have generationally been happening. I just feel
Oh
like
my
it's
god.
just a trigger
Go to
word.
Oxford. Go to Oxford and find the word define wokeism.
Okay.
Let's find wokeism.
I just can't stand, you know, when they just throw out that word woke, you know, and it's supposed to be this evil word. If anything, the word means being aware, okay? We've spent years with very messed up things happening, years of inequality and injustices happening. So what? You're now aware of these injustices happening and you're trying to make a better tomorrow, and that's a terrible thing?
I don't know what that means. It's just here. Okay, here's my gripe. Here's my gripe. She makes the argument that this has to be a safe space for women, but neglecting the point that she's a transgender woman herself. Like
Right.
it's almost like an invisibility. Like, oh, I'm cloaked
Very
myself.
oblivious. Very oblivious.
And I'm like, but oh, mama, you're transgender, which is nothing wrong with that, but you can't place yourself in the same
No.
category as a cisgender woman when you are not a cisgender woman yourself. That's where I get. I'm like, but espérate, hold on. I understand that you're coming in, you want to chime in because I thought that you were in support of, you know, trying to help this individual that, you know, that's a transgender person from male to female. Fine. That was my understanding. But then I hear the things of he has an erection. These people not safe. I was like, wait a minute.
And that's the thing. That's an example of otherizing. Okay? It's when you look at another group and you otherize them, you make them the other and say that they are not like you. And
Right.
when you paint them as not being like you, then what happens? You start to fear them, and that fear starts to turn into hate.
Hate.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And that's
It's
exactly
unknown to them. It's
right, exactly, and that's right there in that clip. That's exactly what Caitlyn Jenner just did, which is really, you know, hypocritical because she just did it to somebody of her own community.
she's on brand for that. She's on brand.
I'm a legend.
She's on brand for that.
It's, you know, her coming in and saying, "Oh, I'm okay. I'm accepted. I'm doing the right thing." But you're not. You're the other.
You're the other.
Okay?
Come on now.
You are wrong. You are amoral. You are evil, you know? And it causes a lot of clashing there. Like, you can't otherize another group, especially when you're a part of that group.
When you are a part of, thank you. It's just like, come on now. Like, really? Are we putting ourselves in the position? Oh, you found the definition?
Well, that's found the Merriam-Webster one.
Okay. All right.
Aware of and actively attentive to important social facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. That's what woke means.
Okay,
Everyone uses the word
so
woke for
there's
everything.
this whole campaign of anti woke and woke comes to that. Like, no, it's
I
just
just,
literally
yeah, I don't get it.
people fighting for their right to live, and I just find that, so ironic when it's the people who aren't fighting, who aren't, gay or lesbian, or who aren't women, who aren't transgender. These people are saying, oh, I can't stand woke. Well, you know what? You haven't had to face the type of obscurity that these people have had. You haven't had to face the type of hate that these people have had. You know, you can just continue living your life and do your thing. These people can't.
You something else. But that is the thing though. It's you cannot come from a place of inexperience, right? So the way
Exactly.
that Caitlin speaks about it, she speaks as if though she's had that kind of experience. But mama, you lived your life as a white male and you living your life now as a white woman. You have white privilege from ear to ear, girl.
Right.
What's the
She experienced both sides.
I'm like, you know what I'm saying? She's had the best of both worlds. I mean, it might be worse in the women aspect, but I'm just saying. I mean,
The hypocrisy is just through the roof,
it's
man. It's just
it's the oblivion. It's just the oblivious. It's just what?
it's through the roof.
Yummy. But
All right, let's move forward.
why?
Huh? Cause
You're over it?
I'm over it.
Okay.
Oh.
To me, I find no relevance to it, no importance to it. So to me, it's like whatever.
Wow.
It's in Wyoming.
Are you otherizing other people? Because if that it don't matter to you, it's still important. You ain't woke. Look at you. Terrible. Terrible.
We don't want to get started on this topic.
I know. No, but here's what I'm saying. It's important, and regardless, we should still hear both sides of the story. We should be able to still listen to both, points of view and perspectives.
Yeah.
But my thing is like when Caitlyn Jenner kind of chimed in.
Yeah, don't chime in.
I got a little annoyed about
Right.
that. It's like,
She should be on the other
right.
side. She should be like in everything, just
I was like, whatever.
supporting her counterpart.
Whatever. It's what it is. But when I get into our last topic, we want to talk about the Writers Guild of America strike. So we wanted to bring Jesse with us. Jesse has been an important player in this. He's been in many productions. He's done amazing work on some famous platforms, and he would be the best person to, kind of talk to, kind of get an understanding. But I just want to figure out, first question I'm going to throw out there. This is what is the main reason for this strike? What is the main reason for this?
All right. So let me start off by saying that, I've been working in television and entertainment for the most part of about 13 years now. So I've worked a lot in television. And while, I'm a designer and I'm an animator, but this strike, it affects me directly. It affects my career directly. And the biggest reason for this strike is way of living. Okay. And it's all this is all fallout from the streaming wars. It's all because of streaming. Streaming has changed everything when it comes to monetization and how the industry runs. Okay. For decades, the primary way that all of these entertainment and media companies were making money was through ad revenues. That made up for a lot of money that they were making. And you'd recognize these ads through commercials that you'd see on TV in between shows all the time. So those commercials are pretty much, a negotiation between these studios and these small businesses. These small businesses make contracts with these studios and say, I will pay you, the studio, X amount of money, and you guys will air ads for my product or my services X amount of times. And through that, they rotate ads, they rotate different companies, everybody gets their exposure. These companies have the money that they need in order to make these shows, in order to produce the shows. Okay, and this is how it's been working since radio days.
I was gonna say
Okay,
I was gonna say that even before it's been working like that.
yeah, it's been working like that ever since broadcasting began. Now, we have the introduction of streaming services. And things were a lot easier back when Netflix was pretty much the king of the hill because all these studios would go to Netflix in order to air their movies. Now, each of the studios are saying we're going to cut out the middleman, build our own platforms, and they just created this race against each other for the streaming wars, where you have Disney Plus, you have Hulu, you have
Prime
Netflix, you have
Amazon, we have HBO,
Amazon,
Yeah.
you
we
have
have Apple TV. I can
or
keep going.
Max. It's now Max, right? Um, and so the number one thing that you would have noticed when it comes to these streaming platforms is no commercials. So no commercials means no ad
No
revenue.
ad revenue. Yeah.
So how are they making their money? They're making their money through subscriptions. Okay? They are not making the same amount of money through
No way.
subscriptions that they do through ad
No way.
revenues.
No way.
Okay?
No way.
It is nowhere near the same, which is why you have these streaming services now offering ad level subscriptions that
Mhm.
are cheaper for you to buy into, but you have to watch ads. Okay, so again, they're going back to ad revenue. Okay, so that changes a lot of things. These platforms change a lot of things because and I'll go into all of it, but they change. One of the biggest issues was the residuals that all the writers and all the producers and directors are supposed to receive because the streaming platform is different from a linear platform. It changes the episode lengths because whereas we had seasons that were standard about 26 episodes a season, we're now averaging anywhere between 8 and 15 episodes a season, per show. Okay. And then on top of that, these streaming platforms, they are really going for their own original content. You have like on Netflix, you have Stranger Things, on Disney, you have all the Marvel shows and you
Mhm.
have The Mandalorian, these are high budget shows that are using an insane amount of visual effects. Okay, they are using an insane amount of production value. They cost so much just to produce. Okay, and these companies aren't making that money back from it. They're only making a portion of the money back from all of this. Okay, because of this, this has really started to change the industry itself. You know, because all these companies are bleeding out, but we'll also get into that. Because they're bleeding out money, they're trying to cut costs and save, and they're trying to recoup whatever money that they can.
Mhm.
They're really afraid to spend that money. Okay? Whatever money that they get, they're really afraid to spend. So, whereas before streaming, you'd have all different television shows, some that were really great and others that were not so much,
So great. Yeah.
be- because they're afraid of losing so much money because of how expensive these shows are to produce. It's either the show is either a smash hit from day one
Mhm.
or they cancel it right away. Okay. And that also plays into things as well. So we have several different ways that things are being affected. Okay. And just for a moment to go back to the residuals, for anybody who doesn't know, a residual is an amount, a smaller portion amount of money in when that they receive, that the creators and everybody who is involved in the
Mhm.
show receives when the show is re-aired in syndication. So it could be a rerun on like another channel. It can be aired, in another country. But let's say we take Friends, for example. Every time an episode of Friends airs, each of the 6 cast members receives money from that. Not only do they receive money from that, the writers from Friends also receive money from that. The producers from Friends also receive money from that. The directors from the episodes of Friends also receive money from that. And that amount of money that they would receive, okay, would help fund their annual salaries. So every time a project is over, the writers and producers and everybody are looking for the next project. And while they're looking for the next project, these residuals is just passive income that's just helping to pay their bills, help
Pay
to
the
buy
bill.
groceries,
Yeah.
help to keep the lights on, help to heat their houses, help to pay off their car loans. It's not an insane amount of money that they're receiving. They're just receiving a regular annual salary, which I believe that the minimum, according to the WGA, is about $70,000 a year. Okay. So we've had cases in which like writers from Game of Thrones would say that I used to receive $12,000 a year in my residuals. Now, ever since streaming has come along, I'm only receiving like $4 in residuals for the shows that I've worked on that have gone on to these streaming platforms.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
these shows aren't being syndicated on streaming the same way that they're syndicated on linear TV. You have people that are choosing what shows to watch and how often to watch it. And even if these shows are giving up too much residuals, what do the owners of the streaming platforms do? They'll remove the show from their service. So that cuts out what little residuals they were already receiving.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, so all right. So I'm thinking when I first started seeing Friends, first started seeing it on Netflix. Then it went into HBO.
Right.
Okay, so how did that take into to part? Like just
Well, Warner Brothers was the distributor for Friends, even
right,
back when it originally aired back in the 90s into the early 2000s.
right, and that
Okay.
was the original
So
was it was NBC? No, was it NBC or
it
CW11?
was it was aired new episodes whenever the new episodes aired, they would air it on NBC, but
Right, right.
it was still distributed by Warner Brothers. At the end of
Wow.
the
Okay.
day, it was still a Warner Brothers property.
Right.
Production. Got it. Got it. Okay.
Okay. So because it was a Warner Brothers property, and Warner Brothers is saying, "Hey, we got our own streaming service." What do? They take one of their biggest hits and they say, "You want to watch it? You got to watch it on our platform."
Watch it on our platform. Got it.
Which goes into another reason why, the streaming is an issue. Because there are so many streaming services, the market has become divided. Okay. Whereas before we had like Netflix and Hulu.
Yeah.
Okay. Now there are so many streaming services and regular linear cable providers
Mhm.
that money is being split between cable bills and between the plethora of streaming services that are out there.
But here's the thing, right? Remember when back, I think before the streaming started to explode, we were paying a large amount of money in
For
cable
cable.
services. Now we went ahead and we canceled the cable and we only had internet. Now internet, we're ended up paying the same amount of money
With the subscriptions.
with the subscriptions.
Yes.
At the
Yeah.
same time we pay for cable. So it's just
Right.
like
It's not just a losing situation for the writers. It's also becoming a losing situation for the actual consumers themselves as well. We love this great content. We can't get enough of this great content, but now, we're being scattered all over the place because all these companies have FOMO. Okay? They're all afraid of losing out, and in becoming afraid of losing out, they're creating this lose-lose situation here. And they're claiming that they're bleeding out money. Meanwhile, the actual CEOs of these companies, they are making millions of dollars hand over fist just themselves. David Zaslav, who is the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery,
Mhm.
last year, that man alone earned brought in $250 million just for himself. Okay? Now,
You look mad.
I want a piece of the pie too.
You look mad, bro.
well, that's the thing. So do the writers.
So do the writers. That's what it is.
Now,
This is why it's
the
happening.
issues, like I've stated before, because we have these shows, these original shows, that so much money is being pumped into, like all these, just the Marvel shows alone, on Disney Plus, especially She-Hulk, with like how much CGI they needed for She-Hulk herself. A lot of this budget also has to go into the visual effects. Okay. And like I said before, the seasons are becoming smaller in order to spread that budget into other areas. So they try to recoup the money by trying to stiff the writers. They have them writing for fewer episodes. They're trying to reduce the size of the writers' room, which was, very common practice for every show out there. And they're really just trying to turn writing into a gig economy where instead of having steady work, they're
Mhm.
trying to have them jump from project to project, you know? Um, and the writers are very essential because they have three major roles to play within the production of the show. They are the backbones of the show. So we have writers in pre-production. They're the ones that are actually coming up with the concepts and the ideas and the stories and the plots and creating the characters. So we have them in pre-production. We have them in production. If while they're filming, they need to make sure that the story of the show is being consistent the whole season through, because especially since they have
Follow
multiple
the vision.
writers working on the show. Right. You need writers to be there while the show is happening in order to keep the vision consistent. Every episode's a different director, every episode's a different writer. There needs to be the consistency that goes across the board. So writers need to be on set while the show is in production. And they also need writers in post-production as well. They need to make sure that if Marvel in particular that is known for uh, calling for rewrites and re-edits, especially in the last few hours of the movie, they got to make sure that the writers are there to oversee that any revisions or new scenes that are added or anything that's taken away, that the writers make sure that it is all cohesive and it's still consistent and it still works.
And you guys
Now,
have in-house writers at the time of the recording, right? Just in case you want to change any last minute details.
Well, that's
right,
what. Yeah, that's what he meant before. Like when they have during the time, so it says pre, and during, and then post. So
Right.
it's that they all play a key role in that.
Right. They all play a key role, and it doesn't end there either. So if there's a show that's a great success, then there are great promotions for the writers who worked on that show. They start becoming renowned in Hollywood, and they start getting higher profile
And they
projects.
get they're building their
Yeah.
resume.
Right, and they then climb the ladder to become showrunners. And what showrunners are is that they're pretty much the head writer that oversees all the other writers. The showrunner has the overall vision, and they're responsible for all the other writers to make sure that each writer is playing their role to reaching that final goal. So you go from, a new incoming writer or writer's assistant, and you work your butt off and you work on these shows that become successful, and then you become a showrunner from there through your experience. But if we go back to what I had said earlier, these companies are so afraid of losing money that if the show isn't automatically successful, if it isn't a smash hit, they can it right away. And in the past, we've seen tons of shows that didn't start off the greatest,
But they become
but then
popular. Yep.
as they
Build up.
developed,
Oh
they
man,
found their rhythm, they found their development, they really found the
their
sweet spot for the
voice, they found
characters.
their vision, it connected, it made sense.
Yeah,
And
the fans
for
enjoy it.
me, in my mind, a prime example of that was like Parks and Recreation, you know, and I remember like the first, or even The Office, the
Yes.
first, the first season of The Office, Michael was so unlikable.
So
Okay,
then like
people did not like what was happening. Season 2 came along, okay, and they completely changed up Michael, and we started off with scenarios like the George Foreman grill, okay.
thinking about it.
Exactly.
Just thinking.
Okay. The George Foreman grill. That was a classic episode. If The Office would have been airing today in today's, entertainment
We would have
environment,
had season 2.
we never would have gotten that.
No way. And they went
Okay.
up all the way to season 6, 7? No, I want to say 7.
I think that I could be wrong. You have to check IMDb. I think that they made it up to season 7. I'm
7,
not
right?
sure.
But
Or I think that might have been when Steve Carell had left at season 7 and then they continued for like 2 seasons after that. I could be wrong. I don't remember off the top of my head. So when these shows get canceled after just one season, then these writers have to start from scratch again. They're not building, they're not saying I had this success and therefore I could move on to another, higher profile project. They are starting from scratch again. Okay. So they can't develop and get to the point where they start becoming the showrunners who are responsible for these higher end shows. They can't develop, they can't move along. Every time they're starting from scratch again. And what happens when they start from scratch again? Then their pay also starts
They're
from
paying.
scratch
I
again.
was gonna say you ain't got no seniority on this.
Okay.
You ain't got no
Their
seniority on this pay rate.
their pay starts from scratch again. Okay, so they're cutting the supply chain of writers properly climbing the ladder in order to gain that seniority like everybody else strives for in their career. Okay, so that's a huge part of it. They're not making the money that they deserve. Their royalties are being cut down. They're not developing. They're not continuing along. They're pretty much, cutting them at the ankles before they can, really get their careers going.
And even
You
get
know,
their
they're
footing. Yeah.
they're cutting down the sizes of the writers' room. Whereas a typical writers' room you'd have like about 12 people or so. Now they're just trying to make it like 2 people, you know? So it's hugely impacting the economy, you know? So the Writers Guild of America, when they came to the table for these negotiations, they said that, among all the writers within this organization, we are looking to receive $429 million, which sounds like a lot. But when you take into consideration that I believe it was last year that Hollywood and the actual filmmaking industry had about $50 billion in revenue,
It's a small piece of the pie.
$429 million to be split among all of the writers is just a drop in the bucket.
It is. Drop in the bucket.
Okay. And again, I reiterate, last year, David Zaslav, for making that merger with Warner Brothers and Discovery, he made $250 million. One person made $250 million. And you know what happened to other people because of his big payday? Tons of people were laid off, including a good friend of mine who was a coworker of mine. He got laid off from his job working at HBO Max. We had situations in which the Batgirl movie that was already like 95% complete was completely scrapped for the sake of a tax write-off because they said they didn't believe that it was going to make back the money that they wanted it to make back.
Right, but they wouldn't know unless you release it, like
Right, you wouldn't know that, but again, they went with the whole mentality of like, you know what, our focus groups say it's not a hit. Okay, so since our focus groups say it's not a hit, we're scrapping it all together. There was an entire production crew that worked their butts off for that movie. Okay? Just for all the work that they did to be scrapped and deleted and for nobody to ever see this movie. Like, that is so wrong. And then on top of that, David Zaslav cut a lot of content off of HBO Max, especially animated content, because he doesn't like animated content. Okay? So many people who were receiving royalties for their shows, and a lot of these shows were fan favorites as well, you know? He axed these shows, so these people were not receiving their royalties. Okay?
Total BS.
Meanwhile, like I said, he made $250 million.
My man gave himself a bonus.
And yes. Okay. And not to mention
Yeah, write that on
what
the tax
people
write-off.
I
you
just want
jerk.
like 50,000. Just give me like 50K.
that's the thing. If you were to
That's
take
what the writers want. The writers want what
want
they
incentives, you know?
they well, not necessarily incentives, but they should come along with credit,
Of course.
along with putting in all that time and effort into that project, and then for it to be
Recognition.
scrapped in the side, and then on top of that, you're gonna lose your job.
Like I wish my buddy Jay would be my buddy Jay Pierre would show up, but he's too mad.
He mad.
He's too mad to join us on
He's
the chat.
big. He's big mad. He's big. Mad.
so you know, these people are they're losing so much money. If you were just to take like 10% of what's, you know, a CEO like David Zaslav made and reinvested it back into the company, you could pay thousands of employees. Okay? You could create better content. All right? And the more content.
Absolutely.
Okay? The writers are the backbones. Without the writers, we have nothing to watch. You know? They are the backbone of this industry, and they are not receiving their proper dues.
They're not.
And I don't know if you've just seen, you know, like HBO Max was just rebranded now as just Max, and you know the actual platform itself looks very sterile and corporate and looks, you know, rather uninteresting compared to what it was before. But you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Zaslav just tries to bump up the value, you know, and you know, just lays waste to everything just so that he can cash out and sell everything to somebody else again while he has a crap ton of money, and then he leaves tons of people getting laid off because of it. And even though, you know, I'm picking on David Zaslav here, he's not the only one here. This is a trend that's happening throughout all of these media companies. You know, we're seeing the same things happening with Paramount. We're seeing the same things happening with Disney. We're seeing the same things happening, you know, with Amazon. We're seeing all these companies laying off so many employees because they put so much money into these streaming platforms, and it's not getting the return on their investment. Okay? They've left linear cable in the dust to put all of their new content onto these streaming platforms, and they're not getting all the money back for it.
Now, but here's
So-
the question. So now if we're focusing on just streaming only, right? Which
Yes.
a lot of consumers like myself, I'm guilty of it. We went straight to streaming, and you know, we didn't have cable, we didn't have we didn't want to pay for commercials or whatever the case may be. You want to pay extra, you don't want ads and whatever. We didn't realize in the back of our minds that how this was affecting the industry in that sense. It was just
Yeah.
now brought to our attention, like these are the things that are happening, and I'm like, I didn't put two and two together.
Listen, don't even get Chat GPT involved, you know, because
Oh,
that's a whole other
Well,
story.
so that's also another stipulation. That's another stipulation that the WGA is, you know, that's one of their terms when it comes to these negotiations, because what these CEOs would like to do is if there are already scripts that are existing for a popular series, you have AI like ChatGPT that can scan through all of the scripts that were previously existing and formulate new content and new episodes based on prior events and circumstances that happened in previous episodes.
That were written by
Okay.
humans.
Yeah,
That
because
were
that's what it
written
does.
by humans.
Remember, the knowledge is there. The ChatGPT, we talked about this the last time.
Yeah.
It's basically it has all the knowledge of the internet and everything is already built into it, that it could just read all the plot points and character points and just makes its own story based on everything it just searched.
And regurgitate
And
Right.
it.
regurgitated that, yeah.
And a big concern is that AI is still in its infancy. All right. It's already pretty impressive with what it can do as of today, and it's only in its infancy.
Absolutely.
And it will continue to develop and it will continue to improve upon itself. So a big fear that these writers have is that, these industries will take old scripts, recycle them through, an AI, and instead of hiring a writing staff to come up with new episodes, they'll just hire an editor to edit and polish up what the AI came up with. And on top of that, not even pay for a full writer's fee, but just as like an editing fee, because you know what? You didn't come up with this script. The AI came up with this script. Okay.
But they can't pay the AI, so that's like a
Right. They can't pay all they got to do is pay for the software.
yeah.
They pay for the software and they just have somebody who knows how to use the AI, and then that's it. And it's just highly unethical. All right. And again, these CEOs, they don't, to them, it's not about the people. It's not about, consumer satisfaction. They don't care about consumer satisfaction. It's not their job to care about consumer satisfaction. Okay. It's their job to optimize how much money they can possibly make. Almost sounds like a job that could be done by an AI. Okay.
100% facts.
How do you fire an AI?
Okay.
Because you can't.
Like, you shut down, bro.
All right.
Unplug, yeah.
Unplug them.
So these CEOs don't care about the quality of the content. They like to come off as they do, but they don't. It's just about optimizing how much money they're getting. Okay. And in order to do that, they've been cutting out the writers. Okay. So, like I said before, the WGA, they said that they are asking for $429 million. Okay. And in response, they were met with, I believe, about $87 million was what these studios, that was their counter offer.
Oh my God. So that's why we standing outside with the picket fences.
I hope one day to strike with the rat next to me.
So
you stupid. You stupid.
So
But the rat is what, representative of a union?
Mhm.
I always forget, right? Union, right? Okay.
So that's exactly why they've been picketing, because it's been enough is enough. These writers have seen the writing on the walls. Their careers are at stake in more ways than one. And they are a central part of the industry that are not receiving their fair share that they should be receiving. And
Absolutely
they're, it's becoming an industry, that they are just trying to whittle out. So while these CEOs are making hand over fist with money, and they're saying that their companies are bleeding out money,
They're trying to phase out. They're literally trying to phase out the human aspect, the
Yep.
human spark, the human touch to the magical
the
work.
ingenuity.
Yeah,
The ingenuity, the creative.
That shit gets me mad. It just gets me mad.
Now the reason why this affects me is because while I'm not a writer, like I said, I'm a designer and an animator. It's my job to promote new content.
Yeah, you're
When
part
you
of the
see,
process, so it's
yeah, I am. When you see the commercials on TV, when you see an ad on Facebook or Instagram, when you see like a commercial that shows up on YouTube, that's me. You know, that's my work. That's my role that I play. Now, if there are no writers, then there's no new content. If there's no new content, then I've got nothing to promote. Okay? Now, there are some fallbacks. Back in 2007 with the first writer's strike, um, we saw the rise of reality TV and we saw the rise of the Kardashian family. Back to Jenner.
Back to Jenner.
Back to Jenner.
It went,
It
it
all
went,
full
it went,
circle.
it went Kevin Bacon on that bitch.
And when Kevin Bacon. So the first writer strike though was, you know, about like health care and benefits and, you know, everything else that comes with the job. That strike lasted 100 days,
I
you
remember that.
know, and within that 100 days, Hollywood lost like 2 million. No, I think it was like 20 million. It couldn't be 2 million. Yeah, they lost like $20 million within, you know, that time span. Okay. Um, they're expecting, you know, that this strike as well is going to have some real economic consequences
Of
too,
course.
you
Everything's
know?
more expensive now, so it's gonna be that 20 million back then in 100 days could be like in 20 days from now. You know, like and what you guys are what, day 16 or something?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You guys are what, day 16 of the strike?
Oh yeah, it started
May
May
3rd, something
it
like
started
that?
May 2nd. May
May
2nd.
2nd?
Yeah. You know, so what, like 22 days now?
Yeah, 22.
So we don't know how long this is going to go on for. One thing that I could tell you for sure is that the writers will not budge. All right? The writers are not going to budge. Again, David Zaslav.
As they should. They shouldn't budge. They shouldn't budge.
David Zaslav has said, you know, the writers are going to miss writing, so they're going to be back before you know it. You know, which
Jerk.
yeah, I don't know if you saw it too. He also gave a commencement speech at Boston University, and he was booed during his speech.
Not surprised. Where's the bleep button? Where's that? Where's that bleep button? Where's that bleep button?
Ready?
So you know, it's just these writers aren't going to budge because it's their livelihoods that are at stake. And also, these CEOs are not looking to budge anytime soon because that means that they have to give up more of the pie. And especially since they've invested so much money into these shows that aren't receiving as much back, you know, they're kind of also really standing their ground as well.
Everybody's bitter on both sides. Everybody's bitter.
But between the two, I very much believe that the writers are not going to be the ones to budge.
No.
Because without the writers, there is no new content. We can go back to, you know, airing some more reality shows, okay? Sure, but that's only going to last so long.
But so long.
And come like next year, we're going to be definitely feeling, you know, the repercussions from this. You know, we're going to be like next summer. There's not going to be any big blockbuster movies. There's not going to be any shows to binge.
Right.
You know, we're going to see that in the future. You know, so the sooner this gets resolved, the better.
And you know what it is, like thinking about all the blockbusters and all the things that are planned out. Like, again, you mentioned Disney platform. I mean, talking about HBO, all these different things like Disney. Like this week, the big thing this week is Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Just imagine if that wasn't able to be released, right? All the money, and all of a sudden it got scrapped.
The release is
Well,
not
I mean,
the filming, you know.
No,
like,
right. It's not.
halted filming.
No, what I'm saying, like that's the process. Like, imagine like you're putting all this effort and putting in money into it, and all of a sudden for it to be scrapped. Like,
right. And the thing is too, there's also a lot at stake too. If we stick with Disney for a second, you know, we have the Marvel lineup. You know, we have like the upcoming Avengers movies that are on indefinite hiatus. You know, we also have on Netflix the final season of Stranger Things, which is on hiatus. You know, It's not just a matter of that we're not being entertained. It's also a matter of that's a lot of money. Hollywood is a huge revenue builder. It's a huge factor in our economy. You know, Entertainment is enormous. Okay, we are all consumers. We all want all of this entertainment, all these amazing stories. We love it. We crave it. We can't live without it. So the writers certainly have the leg up. Without them, without the writers, then we have no content to consume. If we have no content to consume, we're not subscribing to these streaming services.
Nope.
We're not going to the movies and ticket sales. Okay, that affects the movie theaters. Okay, that affects the movie studios. They were expecting, they've got money to recoup as well. They're not making that money. So it really is a domino effect, and it goes way beyond what people might be aware of right now.
And the sad thing is that it's just only the beginning. It's just the beginning,
It
because
is.
we really have to just take a step back and just take a look at the whole bigger picture. We're literally worrying about people's livelihood. Like, if I can't pay my bills because, like, really, come on now. That's really
Right.
what it
And
comes down to.
like I said, I heard the story of this one writer from Game of Thrones who I think they were working on House of the Dragon, who lives here in Brooklyn, and that they weren't able to work in their own apartment because they couldn't afford to like have the heat on, so they would go to the public library to write episodes of Game of Thrones just so that they could be warm in the wintertime.
This is
Wow.
insane. This is insane. But Jesse, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming with us on this live session, man. We need to open our eyes, guys. We need to make sure that we are helping those that need the help. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody in this entertainment industry needs to get the same rights. Just like transgenders need the same rights, men, women, everybody in their own space. In these individualized spaces, everybody needs protection. Everybody needs to feel feel safe in
Yeah.
those spaces. And it's just like, how can we just can't provide that? How can we provide that for you? Just give it up. Just do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I emphasize with Jesse because I'm in my union at work. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, but I haven't been part of negotiations yet. My mom was also a union delegate, so she's been part of negotiations. So I've seen the battle go back and forth between employer and employee. Like they're making millions of dollars,
not
bro.
easy.
It's not, and just for you to for us to get like a couple of percentages increases, it's not much. It's not much.
Throw your little
Because
trinkle.
at the end of the day, they're still gonna make millions of dollars, bro.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw a trickle at you so you can shut your mouth.
Yeah, I just
Like,
want a piece of the pie,
Listen, we all just want to live. We all just want to be able to provide for our families, you know. And I personally, I'm in full support of the writers. I'm in full support of the writers. They deserve their fair share, especially since they bring us such amazing stories. They time and time again they bring us such amazing stories. So they deserve their compensation.
They do.
Yeah, I do.
Just like everybody else. Everybody else. Well, guys, we want to thank you for coming on with the live sessions with us. We want to thank our special guest Jesse for coming on with us and schooling us and giving us the information, letting us
Thank
informing
you.
us how everything is supposed to go down. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Thank you so much for having me back on here, letting me, put my 2 cents in the mix.
Absolutely. And I hope you had a good time. Guys, if you want to comment,
Fantastic.
if you guys want to come and let us know your thoughts, send us an email. Give us comments. And you also can find us on episodes on all platforms.
Yep.
You can find us on Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora. There's so many different ways that you can listen to our latest
Mhm.
episodes. And don't forget, if there's anything else that you want to talk about, email us.
Yeah.
Email us. We have a new email. I don't know if you want to talk about the email.
I don't even know it.
You don't know it. You know why? Because it's so new.
Yeah.
It's called The Molina Fam. So it's THMOLINA Fam at table number 4, the word 4, podcast.com. It's so new. But if you're interested in being a guest, come, let us know. Email us. You can also let us know, give us the comments, And we'll see you on the next one. This is Stephanie.
This is Andre.
And we will see you on the next one. Have a good night, guys.
You just said that.
I did because I'm trying to close it out, but I don't want to say it again.
You gotta say bye.
I gotta say bye.
Okay, bye.